The old house stood on a hill overlooking the town, a skeletal silhouette against the bruised twilight sky. They called it the Blackwood Manor, and for as long as anyone could remember it had been empty. Locals would whisper stories about it, tales of shadows that moved on their own, and whispers that rode the wind on moonless nights. Me? I was a skeptic, a paranormal investigator armed with more bravado than belief. My goal wasn't to find ghosts, it was to debunk them, and Blackwood Manor was my ultimate challenge. I pushed open the heavy oak door, the hinges groaning like a dying man. A wave of cold, musty air washed over me, the kind of cold that sinks into your bones, that has nothing to do with the temperature. My flashlight beam cut through the darkness, revealing a grand foyer draped in cobwebs as thick as cotton candy. A sweeping staircase, its banister caked in dust, led up into the oppressive blackness of the second floor. The silence was absolute, so heavy it felt like a physical weight pressing on my eardrums. I set up my equipment with practiced efficiency. EMF meters, digital recorders, infrared cameras. "Is anyone here?" I called out, my voice sounding small and insignificant in the vast space. "My name is Alex, I'm here to hear your story." The only reply was the echo of my own words, swallowed by the silence. For the first hour, nothing happened. The EMF meters stayed quiet. The air remained still. I started to feel a familiar sense of disappointment mixed with relief. Just another old, spooky house. I decided to explore the ground floor. My light danced across faded portraits with eyes that seemed to follow me. Furniture shrouded in white cloths like forgotten corpses, and a grand piano in the corner of the living room, its keys yellowed with age. I ran my fingers over them, and to my surprise, a single dissonant note echoed through the hall. It was jarring, out of tune, and it made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. I hadn't pressed it that hard. I pulled out my digital recorder. "Okay, let's try this again. Can you make a sound for me?" I asked, my voice a little less confident this time. I played it back, static, and then underneath the hiss, a faint sound. It was almost imperceptible, like a sigh. I cranked up the volume. There it was again, clearer this time, a woman's voice whispering a single word, "Leave." A shiver traced its way down my spine. It was probably just radio interference, I told myself, a stray signal caught by my sensitive equipment, but the cold in the room seemed to deepen. I moved towards the dining room, a long, cavernous space dominated by a massive table. At the head of the table, one of the chairs was pulled out, as if someone had just stood up. I hadn't noticed that before. I placed an EMF meter on the table. Its needle, which had been dormant all night, suddenly flickered. Then it shot up, the device letting out a high-pitched squeal. It was going crazy, the readings off the charts. The air grew heavy, thick with an unseen energy. I could feel it, a static charge on my skin. Then the chair opposite me scraped against the wooden floor, moving back a few inches on its own. My heart hammered against my ribs. Okay, this wasn't a draft. This wasn't faulty equipment. My skepticism was rapidly evaporating, replaced by a primal fear. I backed away slowly, my flashlight shaking in my hand. "Who's here?" I stammered. The room remained silent, but the feeling of being watched was overwhelming. It was a malevolent presence. I could feel it. It wasn't just a lost soul, it was something angry. I decided to head upstairs. Against my better judgment, every instinct screaming at me to run, I climbed the creaking staircase. The second floor was a maze of bedrooms, each one colder and more foreboding than the last. In one room, a child's room, a single rocking horse sat in the center. As my light hit it, it began to rock, gently at first, then more violently, back and forth, the rhythmic creak echoing in the suffocating silence. I backed out of the room, my breath catching in my throat. I was in over my head. This house wasn't just haunted, it was alive, and it didn't want me here. I made my way down the hall to what must have been the master bedroom. The door was slightly ajar. I pushed it open and a scent hit me, the sweet, cloying smell of wilted flowers. The room was opulent, even in its decay. A four-poster bed stood in the center, its curtains torn and tattered. But it was the mirror on the vanity that caught my eye. It was an antique, its silvering cracked and tarnished. As I looked into it, my own reflection stared back, pale and wide-eyed. But for a split second, something was wrong. Behind my reflection, standing right behind my shoulder, was a figure, a tall, shadowy man in a top hat. I spun around, my flashlight beam cutting wildly through the empty room. There was nothing there. My hands were trembling now. I turned back to the mirror, my heart pounding a frantic rhythm. My reflection was there, alone. I let out a shaky breath. It was a trick of the light, a figment of my overactive imagination. But as I watched, my reflection smiled. It wasn't my smile. It was a cruel, thin-lipped grin, a predatory sneer that didn't reach my eyes. My reflection raised a hand and slowly, deliberately, drew a finger across its throat. That was it. I screamed, a raw, guttural sound of pure terror, and I ran. I didn't grab my equipment. I didn't look back. I stumbled down the stairs, tripping and catching myself on the banister, the sound of mocking laughter seeming to chase me from the upstairs bedroom. I burst out the front door and into the night, gasping for the clean, cold air. I didn't stop running until the silhouette of Blackwood Manor was just a dark smudge against the horizon. I never went back to get my gear. I quit paranormal investigation that very night. Some things I learned are better left alone. Some secrets are not meant to be uncovered, and some shadows do more than just whisper. They're just hanging out, waiting for someone to listen to them. To this day, when I look in a mirror, I sometimes see a flicker in my own eyes, a hint of that cruel smile. And I wonder, did I really escape Blackwood Manor? Or did a piece of it follow me out? Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next chilling tale. Stay safe out there.